Welcome to Academy Live. Our guest today is the hilarious and brilliant Larry Cobrin, founder and CEO of MSPCFO. He has an awesome presentation for us today. He's going to talk to us about treating our clients like a portfolio, how we can identify the top and bottom performing clients. We can dig into why their performance varies and how we can start making data driven decisions on how we can improve our margins by making small tweaks to that portfolio. So, first off, I'd just like to welcome Larry on. Larry, thank you for being here today.
Larry, good to see you again. How you doing today? So happy to have you here.
Oh, this is going to be fun. I'm so happy you guys included me in this.
Well, glad to have you here, and I'm looking forward to the topic and talking about it. I think it's going to be relevant to a lot of people. So, on that note, why don't we just kind of dive right in? I'm going to ask you, tell us a little bit about MSP CFO, and then let's bring up the slide deck, and you can kind of go through and start talking us through some of the content you've prepared.
Sure. So, MSPCFO, we were founded a little over 10 years ago as a consulting company to try to help people do their analytics, understand what's driving the profitability in their business and where there might be opportunities for improvement. We started doing this in Excel, sharing files via Dropbox. And what we found is all the analysis people wanted was very similar. So, over the course of time, we developed that analysis into an application. We launched the application in 2015. And for the past 10 plus years, we have been offering it to the MSP community, constantly evolving and making it better. I would argue that we're kind of smart at what we do, but it's because of all of our partners and all the requests that they have. They're collectively a genius. They come to us and they help us constantly make it better. And that includes both the MSP partners and our professional partners like Pax8 Academy.
I love that. Wisdom of the crowd, right? So, before we cut into too much of your time, let's bring up your deck. I'd love to dig into this. A lot of insight here. So, take us away.
Sure. So what we're trying to do is trying to help MSPs achieve what we think they're all going for, whether they're looking for an exit, they're looking for better cash flow, they're looking for better enterprise value. It's really about improving their business, improving the metrics that value the business. And what we would argue is that this can be done one client at a time, as opposed to fixing the entire business. Um, the metaphor that I like to use, if we go on to the next one, the metaphor I'd like to use is think of an MSP as if it's a multi-store retailer. If you're a multi-store retailer, you have, in this example, the simplified example, you have 5 stores. And those 5 stores throw off what we call contribution. In the retail world, it's called their four-wall contribution of the stores. All of that comes and covers the overhead of headquarters and hopefully have something left over for profit. The average contribution amongst these 5 stores is 18%. Okay, it's 18%. And you're sitting there as the regional store manager, as the person who's responsible for all these stores, saying, I want to make it a little bit better. Well, you could change your marketing strategy. You could change all your merchandising. You can have massive marketing and sales. You can redo everything. Or what I would argue and what we want to argue is that you don't have to do everything. And all of those may be appropriate, but they're very big lifts and they're also involved with big risk. So if we actually look at the stores one by one, what you will find is that there are outliers. And that outlier in this case is this 6% store. Every other store is doing great. Well, what if we took that store and we said, you know what, we're not going to fix the whole business. We're going to fix this one store. We got 4 stores who are doing it right, one who could use improvement. If we looked at that one store and we said, you know what, our goal is not to make it the best. Our goal is actually to keep it right there at the bottom, but so much closer to the rest of them. What if we made that store not 6%, but maybe a 16% margin? We'll figure out what about that store isn't working. Well, when you look at your average contribution now, you've now gotten to 20%. You didn't go through any of those large, risky endeavors. You fixed the one store that was problematic. And we would argue that's a much easier task than going through the other approach. So that's the metaphor we use, but MSPs aren't stores. They have clients. They have projects. We have a slide. Projects, agreements, engineers, ticket types. All of these have outliers. So if you can identify which ones of these are the problematic ones, we would argue you can have an outsized return on your effort, really return on effort, fixing one store rather than fixing the entire business, fixing one agreement or agreement type rather than everything, understanding which certain ticket types are outliers as opposed to fixing everything. That we would argue because you're doing it well in that example before, you're doing it well 4 out of the 5 stores. So why can't you apply what you know to that 5th store? So we're
And
gonna take this down. I'm sorry, Chris?
well, I just wanted to go, going back to that and looking at the claims. Do you find that frequently working with, your the partners that come to you and engage in your services? Do you find that they kind of start with that same mentality of we know the total, but we can't tell you where it comes from? Is that kind of frequently that the visibility into the numbers that throw it off? Is that kind of a common theme when people start to engage with you?
Sure, and we work a lot with people who are members of peer groups, and a lot of the peer groups do benchmarking. They'll tell you what your gross profit is relative to everyone else. What they'll say is you're at X and best in class is at X plus some number above X. So you want
Hmm.
to improve that. And they're aware that they're underperforming on the metric that they see in the benchmark. What they're not aware of is what they can fix. Even it might be one agreement, one client, one engineer, one ticket type to really make an incremental improvement. It's really not one, it's finding lots of little things to fix. So yeah, they
Okay.
know they have a problem. They just don't know they didn't know that there was low-hanging fruit to it that they could address. So so we're going to take this much smaller. We're not going to look at every one of these for the sake of the call. We're going to look at agreement pricing. And agreement pricing is what we look at as value, and there's so many ways to define value. But what we look at it is what did you sell? What was the labor portion of your managed services agreement versus what would you have billed for that agreement had there not been one in place? Had you build it T&M? So in this example, let's say that you bill, you strip out all your tools and the labor portion is $3,000. And then you look at the shadow billable and you bill it $200 an hour. You did 20 hours. So you gave the client what you would have billed $4,000. Here we have a mismatch. We have more work than revenue you're collecting. This creates what we call a negative delta. The client is overserved or underpriced. The problem is we know there's a mismatch, but we don't know
Hmm.
why. We don't know if the billing is too high or the labor's too low. Is it priced wrong or are they spiking in activity in a way that's addressable? But it's important. It's a starting point. With a lot of these, uh, a lot of these questions, we have in our system what we call pathways, but it's really a journey. You start by identifying the problem, and then if you could see what's the source of that problem, then the source of that problem, and if the data is good enough, can you get to a level where you really understand what levels, what levers you can pull and dials you can turn. So let's take a look at how this actually affects a business. So that concept of managed service labor revenue and shadow billable, this is for an actual client for 2024. Everything's obviously anonymized, where the managed service labor revenue pretty closely matches. It's off by $21,000. That's the seesaw is pretty well balanced there, and that looks fine. And you can almost tell by the reference I'm making there, the forest looks fine. But what about the trees? Well, that
Hmm.
those numbers are made up of lots of clients. To advance the slide, lots of clients that are balancing each other out. And what you have on one side is you have clients that are really underperforming. What we're representing here is that they are delivering a lot more value above below the line. That's the seesaw where the value is below. They're delivering a lot more value than what you're getting paid. And those are being offset by clients who are getting paid more than the hourly value you're delivering. And again, there's always the question, am I keeping the trains running on time? Are the systems working? Are they happy? That's all relevant, but this is absolutely a relevant issue. The reason being, if you look at the bottom five, typically in this particular situation, it's 12.3% of managed service revenue. You're over delivering. The delta makes up 12.3% of managed service revenue. That's an opportunity to get those right sized. You shouldn't be comfortable with the fact that they're offsetting each other. You should be excited about the opportunity to address these. And the interesting thing about it is it could be an operational issue. And the best thing about an operational is if you address it, you have two wins. You have one, a better matching of work and revenue, and you also potentially have a project. They could have technical debt that you need to address by selling them an upgrade. So these are opportunities that should be mined. And they're offset on the other side by these highly profitable clients who are doing less work. it's funny when I speak to people, and there's usually, when I speak to peer groups, there's rooms of 10, 12, 15 people. And somebody will always or often say it's not a problem to have a too profitable client. And when that happens, everybody turns at them and just shakes their head. Because the problem with a client that's too profitable, the problem with somebody who pays for managed services and never sees their managed service provider is then they wonder, well, I get this invoice every month and technology just works. Why do I need white glove support? Maybe I'll put this out to bid. Maybe I'll go from platinum to silver. So these are the clients you really want to stay on top of, because the benefit they provide you could be fleeting. And we've done research that we've shown that it's actually worse than that. The highest efficiency clients churn more often than your average client. They are flight risks. They do flee. And even worse than that, your less profitable clients, the ones on what we're looking at here on the left side of the chart, they actually churn less often. So happens is you're stuck with these clients that are less profitable, and you're losing the ones that are subsidizing them. So if I were to see a chart like this, what I would do is I would want to address it. And as we've looked at hundreds and hundreds of clients, the clients that address this and take care of it, they still have clients above and below the line. The line is just a lot flatter. There's a lot less of real outliers on either side, because they're protecting their good clients and they're fixing their bad ones.
With it seems counterintuitive. You think about that, you think, but it's fascinating to hear the data, like the ones with the bottom. And I think a lot of I've seen a lot of partners put a lot of effort into the low performing ones, right? And
Hmm.
if there's not the same churn as there is, that's a lot to make up. If you've got that high end that's covering that much of the low end, that's a lot of work. So focusing on that. So I'm kind of curious. You're talking a little bit more about which levers. I'm also fascinated. It's fun to kind of see it's not a singular lever. It's not just do this. There are multiple things you can do to adjust those that scale, right?
Yeah. So let me just show you two more slides, and I'll show you my last one, which actually talks about which levers can be pulled. So
Okay.
if you think about the slide before, really what we like people to focus on is the margins, the bottom five and the top five. So we do have a report now. We call it Insights. We made it available to some peer groups, including Pax8 peer groups, where we really just show people, and this is a free report that we provide, which are the top and bottom five. Those are the ones you want to focus on. This is the beginning part of your journey. And it's interesting when I share this information with people. Let's say look at the bottom five, and they'll say, "Well, these bottom five, I knew about three of them. One of them is a surprise, and one of them just had an issue, and we had a spike of activity, which is actually fine. And a managed service provider is really an insurance policy to be there if something happens. You just hope that it happens infrequently, and it's spread out across your client base. It's fine if one has one. And the thing that gets me isn't, well, the one that had a problem, that's fine. The thing that gets me of those other four, it's not the one they didn't know about, because stuff happens and it can be masked by other activities. It's the three they did know about. It's, yeah, that client's been a pain for the past 18 months. I know there's a problem and we've been thinking about it. And when we talk to clients and we share this information with them, and then we regroup with them 6, 9 months later, once they've started to incorporate the data into their workflows, they talk about having actually doing something. Because what we find, and I don't think this is true simply of MSPCFO, but of any reporting platform that you use, data is empowering. It gives you the courage to go out there and actually do something rather than shooting from the hip. I have a pretty good idea this is not a great client, rather than I know this is a bad client and I'm going to address it because I think there's a positive outcome if I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to underscore that, because I think when I saw insights for the first time, one of the things that popped out at me was the way you talked about the delta. Yes, it matters if there are these spikes, but what you said specifically, and I heard you speak about this, is those clients that are consistently bad over time. So stop paying attention to the noisy ones. Like that's not your only problem. The other problem is these consistently underperforming. And so I love how the report highlights both the acute risks and also those like long standing trends you need to pay attention to. I would love for you to just point out some of the other aspects of the insights report. It's really, really powerful. I know there's some other information you gather as well. What
Sure.
else do you give us with this report? Yeah.
Well, actually, the next slide addresses your question distinctly. And there's old, Sherlock Holmes comment that you got to pay attention to the dog that's not barking. So in this slide, we show that delta and the biggest changes from what we saw was 3 months, then the 3 months before that, and the 3 months before that. So you can see if something's becoming a problem or something's fixing itself. The ones that the deltas are worsening and the ones where the deltas are improving. Okay, what about if it's not on this slide? What about if it was a bad client and it's not here? Well, that's also an issue because in that situation, it is that persistently bad client. I would argue there's three things you really want to know. You want to know persistently good clients because then they're going to question your value. That's on one side. You want to know clients that are becoming bad because maybe there's a growing technology problem or they've added users and you haven't changed your pricing, whatever might have happened. You want to know about these things that are arising. Can I write that off as a one time event or is this a trend that I want to address before it's 18 months and I've bled for 18 months on this one client? The other thing you want to know, as you point out, is these persistently bad clients. And if they show up on the list above and they do not show up on this one, that means this isn't new. That means that these are clients that have been a problem for quite some time. Um, the last thing that we highlight is the employee utilization. This really is almost a check on whether the data is valid. We make sure that the employees are logging their hours uh, with the help of advice from the good folks at Academy. We think people should log 100% of their hours. Everybody should log at least an 8-hour day. If you do 6.7 hours of client work, then you do payroll wrap for 1.3 hours. Not having time in the system is something we see less and less with our clients now, but we think it's table stakes. Engineers have to enter their time. And then you can also see how much of that is billable. Some of the problems we see with data is, and this is somewhat disappointing, is when they don't trust the PSA. So they'll say, listen, I'm not going to make this billable time because it's covered by an agreement. The PSA is smart enough. It knows how to work with that. But making that non-billable time, and non-billable time is a thing that should be tracked, but making real work and non-billable time look the same causes problems for the data. So these are the three pieces of the insights report that we provide. And it really is a small slice of what we try to help people with them at MSPCFO. And then, Chris, to your question, the root problems. When there's a mismatch of uh, revenue to work, we like to drill down even further. And this is not an insights, but it's in the fuller product, but something people should be aware of. The agreement efficiency, that's the ratio of what you bill versus the value work you did. In that example, we did, what did we do? We did $4,000 worth of work for $3,000, with $3,000 of revenue for $4,000 of work. That's a 0.75 efficiency. Smarter people such as yourself will tell me the number should be closer to 1.2 to 1.3. So if it's low, well, you should deconstruct that. You should say, what's the problem? Remember, it's you're doing this much work and you're getting paid this much. We know one's higher than the other. We don't know why. So you should deconstruct that. What's your revenue per endpoint? What's your billable per hour? And then the work you put in, what are your hours per ticket and tickets per endpoint? Where is there an outlier? Is it an operations problem? Well, then you send it to the operations people. Is it a revenue problem? Send it to account management. Make sure they're not on legacy pricing. Make sure that you're charging them for all the work that they're doing. And this endpoint can obviously be swapped out for user. Um, but you have the right conversation. You don't attack an operations problem with pricing, and you don't attack a pricing problem with operations. And that I think you can get the best bang for your buck, best return on your effort. Because again, it's about fixing the problem, making it as small as possible, rather than having to fix something globally.
Yeah.
and
So
fixing a
people don't
tool.
trust their Yeah, people don't trust their own PSA, you mentioned. So how do we get to the good data if we're totally clueless? Do you just sweep in with your cape, Larry, and just like clean everything up, and it's beautiful and sparkling from there on out? Like how do we get to the point where we can start making data driven decisions? What would you advise? I guess to get started.
So the question that it's a great question. We have many people come to us and they say, I don't know if my data is good enough. And I will tell you, almost never do we see perfect data. and very infrequently we see data that's not good enough to work with. Sometimes, most often, we see issues with costing, but when we see that there's problems that we can't work with them, they don't trust the PSA, people don't put in their time, their boards are all messed up, they don't have great type, subtype, and item. Again, it's a journey. The deeper you can go within the data, the more discrete your answer can be, the more addressable it can be to the problem. When we see situations like that, we're a software company. We do onboarding, we support the product, but we're not consultants. We never wanted to be. I I want to have a software company. So I have the benefit that we have some good relationships. One of our longest relationships is with Pax8 Academy. Before I even sold my first license, I remember meeting with Rex in 2014. We sold our first license in 2015, and it became. People have heard me say this before. It became a again, this young people might miss this, a reverse Reese's peanut butter cup situation, where I wanted to be the chocolate and he wanted to be the peanut butter. We didn't want to be like, he didn't want to do data and I didn't want to do coaching. So we decided to be separate and to support each other. We work with other people in the industry. We'll work with, there are a lot of, our industry is blessed with a lot of great coaches and consultants, but we do have a long relationship with Pax8 Academy. And I will tell you, we have a standing call every week with Academy. So we kind of think in the same way. We do talk business sometimes. It's not only gossip, but since they're unrecorded calls, I will not tell you what we discuss.
Well, I'm gonna ask you one of the hard ones because I know our viewers will want to know. But I know you worked through ConnectWise. I know that's supported. I hear you're working on some other PSAs. So just throw a shout out for where we can start getting this data from.
Sure. So we do work with ConnectWise right now. We also work with Autotask. Um, we are talk about journeys. We are on a very long, lengthy journey with Halo. Every time we think we're done, there's always one more thing we need to fix. So I could come back to you in a week and say that we're done, and I come back to you in a month and say that we're done. But Halo is the next on our list of PSAs. We don't have anybody really teed up beyond that at this point.
Yeah, I love that. And it just goes to show like how much effort you're putting in to continuously update the value of MSPCFO, right? Like you are always fine-tuning, adding more value to it. I have seen sort of a small portion of your journey and I'm just so impressed at how it continues to evolve and offer new insights. I know that the peer groups you mentioned got access to insights. I'm curious, Chris, have you seen any of the activity happening with the peer groups and this new tool, or anything they're finding from this?
Well, I know, having a relationship with, MSP CFO and Larry, some of it really inspires a lot of, great conversations. And some of the things I've seen in the peer group, to me, it really goes down to focus and intent. That's one of my favorite things about what the peer groups provide is focus and intent. And there's so much that a lot of our partners, as business owners and service managers and account managers and business development, sales marketing, in their roles, there's so much more that, and you don't necessarily know what you don't know. So asking those questions, comparing to others, you know, watching Larry in a room in a peer group, asking these conversations about profitability, about agreement configurations is just fun to watch. No matter how many times I see it or experience it, just the aha moments. And Larry, I'd love to kind of put you on the spot and kind of maybe give us a little sample of maybe some experiences, some of the aha moments, just by kind of that focus and intent that you have the opportunity to work with your clients with around the tool and the software and getting the data in. Um, can you kind of highlight some aha moments you've had working with your clients?
Sure. There's one that always sticks in my mind, and that is we were showing someone the data for the first time, and he had come to me and he said, uh, let's look at this one law firm. He wanted to look at a client. He knew it was not as profitable as it should be. And he's like, I'm going to go in and my plan is we were at a peer group meeting. It's like, when I get back, I'm going to set up time to go and talk with them because, we need to address this. We're going to have a pricing situation. And we, we made the decision to look at the data. We pulled it in, we looked at the data. And what we found is that if you look at that we had before up, the root causes, the revenue per endpoint was about the same as it was at every single other client, but there was more tickets. And this was an operations problem, not a pricing problem. And what he found was that they didn't understand how to use Office 365. They had desktop software issues. And he came into the conversation with me. He wasn't angry, but he kind of came in with a determination that he was going to have a tough conversation with his client. And we finished the conversation. He and I finished our discussion, and he left it saying, "You know what? I'm going to schedule some lunch and learns there and train them how to use desktop software to bring the ticket count down." So he started at a confrontational approach where he might have lost a decent client, which he thought was fine because they were bad. And he left with a way to strengthen the relationship and turn a bad client into a good one. So for me, the aha moment usually is, there's a catharsis when I talk to our clients, how they want to fire their bad ones. And if someone's mean, you fire them, and that's not an economics issue. Like if they're cruel to your employees, that's a different issue. But I always say firing a client is like your 10th decision. You exhaust every way to make that client better, and if they don't work, yes, then you let them go. But don't start with firing the client. Start with fixing the client, I would argue.
Yeah. Thank you. That's exactly what I want to hear. That's a perfect story. And Amanda, I think one of the things I want to highlight is something that it's so fun to watch. Just a very recent success story within our peer groups in our, flight plan, kind of this journey to the first, $1 million of revenue, and seeing a business that's been in there and focusing on profitability is a huge part of that, and learning more about, like I said, the right configurations, understanding profitability, understanding what levers to use, and seeing them actually applying them and having results come from that is amazing. So we have somebody that is just this quarter, breaking through that first $1 million milestone, and it's just tremendous to see, kind of. And I think again, that focus and intent and all the other resources available through that peer group community has been a big part of that success. So it's great to kind of see that. Larry, so tell us a little bit about how can people connect with you? How can people connect with MSP CFO?
Sure. So people are more than welcome to come to our website, www.mspcfo.com. If you ever find us at a conference, our next show will be IT Nation Connect. We'll probably be back at Pax8 Beyond. We don't travel a ton, but if we're out there, stop us, ask us questions. We're obviously usually branded, and I love talking to clients, prospects, how people raise ideas. But also, if you want to have access to the product, we do what's called a real demo. And that is, we set up somebody's API, we feed the data into our system, and we show them what we see. And at that point, during that call, it's a 1 hour phone call, and during that call, that we can identify some data gaps. Which we can do by having looked at the data. People describing their data, to me, is just noise, because nobody describes it accurately. I'd rather look at it than have someone describe it. And maybe they get some insights about their business. And if they want to move forward, great. If not, we'll purge their data and part ways as friends. We're fortunate to be on the marketplace. So if they're a Pax8 customer, they are more than welcome to reach out to their account manager and try and set something up. Again, right now, only Autotask can connect us.
That's awesome, Larry. And we are going to include some links to those in the show notes, as well as a link to the awesome course that you helped us produce around MSP CFO Insights. So if you want to get another look at what Larry demoed today, really, really cool stuff. A really good demo there. Thank you, Larry. This was awesome. I love seeing you present. I always get something new, and it's always fun to watch all those people be slightly wrong in a completely safe and humorous way. When you ask a leading question, and inevitably everybody does that kind of moment, those are always fun to see. But you are, as always, a wonderful, wonderful presenter. We appreciate you sharing your knowledge today. Thank you very much. Next up, we have Keith with another great sales pitch. So take us away, Keith.
This is a public service announcement and it's serious. This is the one sales pitch a year I don't focus on baseball metaphors and analogy. I know some of you are sad. I did want to touch on another interest of mine today. When the weather is nice, I like to get outside in my yard and do some gardening. I have vegetable gardens and I have some pollinator gardens. Think of your pipeline like it's a garden. Is it vibrant, full of flowers and vegetables, or is it full of weeds? Before we know it, the holidays will be here and the year is going to be over. How will you end the year, and does your sales pipeline need some cleaning and pruning? Let's touch all the bases on managing your pipeline and managing opportunities. 1. Prospecting. Get the prospecting plan in action. If you don't have a prospecting plan, create one. Are there consistent behaviors around prospecting methods that yield results, or are we just waiting for that website form to be filled out and for the phone to ring? Are you following and executing consistently on that prospecting plan? 2. Progress. Keep your opportunities moving forward. Make sure you're gaining commitment from your buyer to move the opportunity to the next phase. If a prospect is not a good fit, don't move it forward. Just let them know they may not be ready for you at this time. 3. Prune that garden. Make sure you have opportunities that are progressing in your pipeline. Opportunities where you haven't heard from the buyer in a while, they need to be pruned. Is the pipeline bloated? Make a final call to a prospect and ask them if they're still having that problem. Have they just gotten busy, or have they found another solution to solve that problem? Either way, you need to know and prune off the dead vines. 4. Organize. Do you have suspects and prospects all mixed together? Are you using a CRM to focus on prospecting while using your PSA to track the active opportunities of people who are willing and ready to buy? If your pipeline is cluttered, it will lead you to missing on the opportunities of people where they're ready to buy. Business owners and salespeople, the weather's nice. It's time to do some pipeline pruning to make sure your pipeline is realistic and manageable so you can finish the year with a big harvest.
Thanks, Keith. Fastballs, as always. Love the insights. Thank you again to Larry from MSPCFO. Check out those resources in the show notes. And remember, we are live every other Tuesday at 2 p.m. Mountain Time and always on demand. So we also have the podcast. Make sure you check us out there whenever you have some extra time to listen, anywhere you find podcasts. Until next time, all. Bye.